YouTube, what the crap's going on? Heir of Carthage here, back on Total War Rome 2, and this time it is going to be a Carthage vs Seleucids match online. And I've brought a pike corps, which is always a risk in my opinion on Rome 2 because these guys are somewhat unreliable. My opponent has a mix of pikemen and swordsmen, which is always an interesting combination. He's got 3 Median cav. It looks like one Agema cav and an Indian elephant, not the armored variety. I guess he didn't think the armored elephants were worth it. Personally, I think they are. For the extra cost, you get a substantially more powerful unit. It's harder to run it amok, it's harder to kill it. Maybe not harder to run it amok, certainly harder to kill it. But Indian war elephants are powerful, so it's not like he brought a chump unit there. So when it comes to cavalry, his Median cav have the edge on my Carthaginian cav, not necessarily by attack, but by armor and defense. They'll win that fight. So I have to be careful. I've only brought 4 Carthaginian cav, and then I have 5 Cretan archers, and I believe 5 African pikemen. My African pikemen are capable of bringing down any of his pikemen, except for these silver shields. Those guys are going to be better. Wow, they have a lot of armor for a pike unit. A considerable amount of armor for a pike unit. So, they're too expensive to really be used a whole lot. Let's see, Agema cav, decent cav unit. And again, his Median cav is going to outmatch mine in a head-on engagement. I do have numbers on my side, and I have 3 late Libyan hoplites to assist in soaking up a charge or assisting in a cav fight. Though I've come to not expect too much from these guys. They're really just good as kind of extra fodder. I do want to move in range, let my Cretans open fire. My opponent has 2 Syrian heavy archers, which is the only real threat to my own elephants. And right now I'm seeing a potential weakness in my opponent's deployment, and let's take a look at it real quick. We'll take an overhead view. My opponent does have, let's see, so I'm the red. Alright, remember, Carthage is the red here, that's me. So my opponent does have a couple of cavalry units in this woods here, but you'll notice that my opponent's in a typical crescent flanking formation, and right now I'm holding in a very defensive formation with all my cavalry within range of my spears and ranged units. And right now, I want to keep it that way. Now, I have one unit, when you think about it, in my army, I have one unit that's really capable of causing some real damage to my opponent's army, and that's my elephant unit. And right now, it's protected from the front by my pikes and my skirmishers, and on the sides by spears and cavalry. So basically, the intent is to keep my elephants safe. And the weakness that I see is my opponent has a strong pike formation right across. Well, hang on, let me get my paint back on. He has a strong pike formation right here, but you'll notice that he has a weakness. If my elephants were to come right here into his swords, there's very little he could do about it, and then at the same time, my own pike line, which is here, could push forward and engage his pikes so that there's nothing they can do, and then my cavalry can keep his busy. And then another move that I would make, so if my elephants were going to run here, another move I'm going to make is peel off 1 Carthaginian cav to pin down his skirmishers, and then I would just be willing to potentially lose this engagement here just to keep his cav busy, and then of course I would engage his cav here with my spears as well. So that's that's kind of the line that I see here, and basically I want to take the initiative and make it happen. So let's watch what happens and see if my plan works. I generally fare better whenever the initiative's on my side rather than playing defensively or reactively. So a lot of times, even when it's not always to my favor, I'll do something just to take the initiative. So it looks like I'm going to play very defensively, see how I'm pike boxed. But I've already devised my little plan, and I'm ready to execute. I'm firing on Assyrian archers who are moving into the woods for cover. Good move by my opponent. And you can see his pikes are being forced forward because of the number of skirmishers that I have. So right now the plan's going to line up really nicely for me. And right about now is when I should pop into action. And here we go. Yeah, so I'm having to reposition my Cretans. I'm letting his swords come in even closer so that I have a pretty guaranteed shot at him. So I'm going to go into slow motion again. Look, everybody typically thinks flanking is good. It is great, but I got plenty of protection. My opponent brings all of his potential protection for his swords around here and just leaves my elephants a wide open line to his swordsmen. So let's watch how this plays out. I'll go into play. It doesn't take long for elephants to deal with swords. I did accidentally nick his silver shields here. Lucky I didn't lose an elephant. And then look at this, just complete decimation. His Syrian archers didn't react quick enough. One of them starts to fire a few flaming shots. but it's just not quick enough and they're too far out of the way. So again, now my opponent's own elephants are being flamed and shot by my archers, while his sword and pikes are just being completely decimated. So see, my elephants, by taking that initiative, my elephants are able to start dishing serious damage while his elephants are still trying to get into position, and here they run amok and actually run into his own thorax pikeman onto the front of some of my spears. They do kind of get into the flank of this African pikeman, but you can see that my African elephants have mopped up several sword units almost in their entirety, and then my pikemen are able to hold off the remainder of his sword units, and it would take him a long time to outflank. So my opponent did outflank. He does bring his cav in from behind, but now I've got even more units that I can commit to this fight. And it's at this point when I decide I'll probably break this cavalry out here and go after his skirmishers, which are now completely unprotected. I'm not as concerned about my backlines now. I could lose my Cretans, but at this point it doesn't really matter if I lose my Cretans because I've gained such a massive infantry advantage. Normally you'd want to be careful about that because he still has elephants on the field and you wouldn't want to lose your Cretans until they were gone. But in this particular case I have pikes left, and if I just pike box I'd be safe from his elephants. But yeah, my own elephants have racked up over 300 kills, and his get a considerable number of kills because they got into the flank of some of my men. But it was just, again, the initiative which really saved me in this case. So I was able to keep my elephants safe, and again here he gets a light cav into my Cretans, which is great. He's going to get a pretty fair number of kills, but all I have to do is retreat and then just get my pikes in order to turn around, and now his cavalry is going to be bracketed off. My Carthaginian cav does a great job of holding on in here. The morale of his men kind of faltered. He does bring in his Engema cav, though. Eventually he'll win that, but it doesn't really matter at this point. I've gotten the damage done that I need to, and see how his light cavalry gets stuck, and my archers break free. My own Carthaginian cav mopped up one unit of Syrian heavies, and he's got another unit, but it's in trouble for my Carthaginian cav now. So let's watch this. My Carthaginian cav going to take these out. So in this case, the initiative really helped me out. Theoretically speaking, my opponent had really good tools, I think, to fight against me. He had better elephants. Check it out here. I'm going to try and ward off his cav. So again, just giving his cav a hard time getting to my skirmishers. And at this point, he could probably do so, but I can at least give him a hard time. I even bring another pike unit over. Pike units are actually capable of stopping cav, one of the few units that can just stop them dead in their tracks. In this case, I was able to gain a victory through taking that initiative, and so hopefully y'all can see the strategy behind what I did there. When I brought these pikes, I never intended for the pikes to be the killing power of my army. If I would have sat back and played defensively, my opponent would have broken me, almost certainly. Yes, I had a big skirmishing advantage, it would have helped, but he could have brought his cavalry to bear and his Indian elephants and potentially ruined me. And if I would have been reactionary rather than taking action, it could have been bad. Now, yes, I had a major advantage in my Cretan archers, but that advantage could have easily been taken from me by my opponent trying to break up my formation, which would have eventually probably happened. So that army that he had there, I probably would have ditched the thorax pikemen and the silver shields and just brought more regular pikemen. I don't think his army is all that wrong, though, because he's got pikemen are great at zoning things out and providing some potential protection for your swords in case cavalry or elephants gets after them. And you all see what I mean by that later. I see a lot of sword armies nowadays, and those sword armies are good, and they can be used properly, especially like you see Bactrian with a mix of elephants and swords and Bactrian noble cav and stuff, and it's a very powerful army. You just have to know how to deal with it, and even then it can be tricky. But I hope you all enjoyed this. Just a little bit of strategic thought there. Got lucky this time and it worked out. HeirofCarthage signing off for now.